I posted very few artists are capable of managing themselves as well as a good manager can.
If you're talking about a great artist and business person, I haven't seen it.
Oh, this damn cat. I swear to God. What's going down? It's the MEC podcast. I'm back on the intro. I've taken my power back from Dame. I have a screaming cat in the background, but life is still good. Appreciate you tuning in. And if you haven't yet, which would be crazy, and you have music, I know you have music sitting on your hard drive. If you haven't signed up to Two Lost for 3 months of free distribution, go do that now. twolost.com. The code is MEC. If you're still using the old code, it still works, but we'd prefer if you use the MEC. That's 3 free months of premium music distribution. And we just actually launched the new segment, which we'll do periodically. We think we're calling it Reality Check. If you have some better suggestions, let us know, drop a comment, and we'll certainly consider it, because we named ourselves At Odds after a user commented with that suggestion. So let's get right into it. We have some topic. I know you're fired up about this video, this 50 Cent video, Dame.
Definitely not fired up. I don't get fired up like that anymore because I'm not actively trying to manage. I just know that some of these things are detrimental to the manager-artist relationship. So that's why I call it out. I know that a lot of people will be in the comments and be like, "Oh, you're a manager. You should have this perspective." So let's jump into the video so people can see what we're talking about.
I have general counsel. I don't have a manager. Why need you manage me for? I've done every deal 100 times that I would be doing, like for me as a music artist, or for what I need you to do that for?
Get some of my money.
They all want to work at a percentage, and you go a percentage of me. Like, you didn't build this. I built it.
So I'm just gonna pay counsel.
Right. That's like I'll even develop management companies to help the artists out, because I'll say, you what you kill. Let your money, because you know who they put as a manager? Someone they trust.
This is just another one of those situations where, like, 50's not wrong for him. Like, 50 is somebody that kind of, maybe, I don't know him, but from the outside looking in, it seems like he enjoys the business sometimes even more than the music that he makes. Somebody that really leans into understanding the business. Seems like he's always working. He's really understanding the different businesses that he gets in. He has a genuine interest in it. Has been around for a very long time. I don't think he started out this way. I'm sure he had management along the way. So 50's in a totally different stage of his career than anybody that's watching this podcast. So you have to just kind of take some of these things into account when you hear any information. Anytime you hear somebody talking, I'm not saying that information is wrong for them, but it might be wrong for you because you're not sitting in the same position as the person that's speaking. And again, that's why it's so important for you to understand this business. So, because when you understand this business and you understand like how you're pursuing music, you'll then understand how, like, which information that you should receive and which information that you should reject. You can go, oh, that makes sense, but that don't apply to me because this is how I'm pursuing music, or this is where I'm at in my career, or this is the access to resources that I have. That's why it doesn't apply to me. You got to make it make sense. But that's why it's so important to tap into our podcast, other people's, but hear these conversations and really understand the business. But,
Well, and be realistic, because it's anything. Anytime any artist that has found some success relates their story, or anyone, I mean, even when I do it, there's always a comment, well, that's not going to work for me. Of course it's not going to work for you. We're not the same person. You're not here to make Xerox copies of other people's moves. You're here to gain insight. And I think, unfortunately, the average person just doesn't understand what that means. Synthesizing information. Synthesizing isn't the same as receiving. If, Russ talks a lot, if Russ says, I'm going to put out a song every Friday for the next 3 weeks, you're supposed to synthesize that information, which is to take in the full broader context and say, oh yeah, Russ already has millions of monthly listeners. He's been doing this for years. I have 3 monthly listeners. If I drop a song every Friday, I'm not going to get the same results, because a lot of people will just be like, Russ, I'm doing everything you're doing. Why are you lying to the people? It doesn't work. And then that's when the dumbass conspiracy theories start coming out. Oh, they only promote certain people, and you got to go to Diddy's parties and this and that. And it's just like, all right, that's why 99% of you aren't going to make it, because your brains aren't doing the heavy lifting. You're just there passively receiving information. So people will passively receive this 50 information and be like, forget the fact that 50 Cent has a diamond album. They're going to be like, oh, I'm just like him. I don't need a manager. He has a diamond album. Do you even have a diamond necklace? Like, come on, man. We have to do better for ourselves. And I think, maybe whenever I feel like banging my head against a wall, when I see artists and creatives coming up with these asinine conclusions, I think, hey, maybe Dame's right. Maybe this is a good thing. Dame always says not everyone's supposed to make it, and maybe they're not. But a lot of people aren't even doing the mental work, let alone that actual real world 3-dimensional work.
I just don't like the pitting against each other. Like, it's always something that puts artists against producers or artists against managers. And it's a very unconstructive dialogue that comes from this. It's stupid, and it's rooted in just a lack of education. Even the response. So I responded to this video, and no labels necessary. Those are my guys, but they gotta stop posting stuff like this. They know the industry. I know that they're trying to get their page popping and things like that. It doesn't matter. Like, they've kind of now fallen into this category where we're going to post the content to get likes, not necessarily give you the context or pull out what they think you should pull out from this particular video. Or maybe they agree with it. I don't know. But I posted very few artists are capable of managing themselves as well as a good manager can. This video doesn't apply to 99.9% of people that are going to see it, because I just don't believe that it does. Like, I've met, Erinn, how many artists have you met that you think are fully capable of managing themselves just as good as that a good manager could?
None. And I've met some great business people, right, who are also artists. But it's like, if you're going to be great at one, you have to let go of some of the other, right? Because you can't be great at both. You can't be a phenomenal business person and a phenomenal artist, not because good business and good art don't coexist, but because to be exceptional at either, you have to really focus. So it's going to get to a point that even the best artist and business person has to give up which one they did. That's why you see a lot of artists will ascend with their music and then they become business people. Do you know what I'm saying? Or a lot of business people will become, content creators or whatever. It's like, you got to have a team. Now, this isn't for artists to hear me say, and like, yeah, this is why I need a team because I don't do the business. No, when you start, you got to do both. But to be great, if you're talking about a great artist and business person, I haven't seen it, because even the best ones, I'll give an example without giving too close of an example, but any artist that I've ever left or who has left me did not continue to grow at the same rate. It's not because I'm so phenomenal. I think I'm a great manager and I think I'm great at business. I'm not downplaying myself, but I was focused on the business and they got to contribute. They were focused on the art and I got to contribute. When you have to focus on both, or find somebody and then train them in the system and hope they know the business as well as me and then hope they support you as well as I do, you're dealing with, and again, this isn't about me. It's just, I've never seen it work long-term in a sustainable way where you're just as good at both.
Yeah, there are a few artists that I think can manage themselves well, but in my opinion, even these artists are leaving a lot on the table. They could be doing so much better if they had a good manager or partner or whatever you want to call it. Like, sometimes artists don't want a manager because just their ego doesn't allow them to say this person like manages me. Like
they
that
don't want a big business partner because they don't want to give up a business partner percentage.
Yeah.
And they don't want you taking equity off the top. They want you to get the back end. I hear a lot of artists who hate the manager name, but they don't really want a business partner. They don't want to talk that big dog talk.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I think some artists can because there's some independent artists that aren't trying to like maximize the money they make. They have other things. They want to live a comfortable lifestyle. They want to keep things coming in consistent. And I think artists that have an interest in that, it's not like I want to go to 10. I think those are the artists that might get to a point where they could just manage themselves in the thing that's coming. Or you're 50 Cent and you're a legacy artist and you've done so much, you've seen so much, then maybe you do just need a lawyer and you love it. And it seems like 50 Cent really loves the business. Like I said, really loves the business side. But when I said what I said, of course, the first comment in return, Kat says, spoken like a manager, possibly, especially in the wake of the record number of execs being fired this month alone. Just maybe they should learn or take the time to cut out the manager and let a lawyer explain the contract to you. Artists, stop being lazy. Now, I agree with the last part, like to stop being lazy, but stop being lazy doesn't mean like you don't need a manager. But also like, because you have to do a lot before you even find a good manager. So many artists have never had a quality manager. That's why you don't respect or value the position.
But wait a minute. So his point is get a lawyer in lieu of a manager?
Yeah, because basically he's saying you can do everything else. All you need is somebody to explain the contract to you.
But hold on. A lawyer's going to charge you to explain the contract. A manager's not going to charge you to. So a manager's just going to take what money they make for you. So it doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense because it's a dumbass comment. But my point is, if you're working with a lawyer, yes, a lawyer is going to negotiate this contract, explain that stipulation, give you a rundown on this, redline that. Number one, if you're an artist who's just starting out, you don't need a lawyer. What's coming through that's that complicated? Even when you get booked for an event, 9 out of 10 times you're not going to have a booking agreement. And when you do, it's going to be some simple little thing. And even if it's not simple, it's for $150. Who cares? You're not going to spend $400 for a lawyer to redline that. Come on. So then once you get to the point where you need a lawyer to negotiate these I guess, more complicated and higher ticket opportunities that are contractual, that lawyer is going to take a percentage anyway, or a flat rate. So what's the difference between that and a manager? You don't like that shit either.
But I just don't want, and I'm not saying that you confuse them right now, Payne, because I think you made a great point. But a manager that's like fully tapped in does a shitload of stuff. Like,
no, don't get me wrong. A lawyer and a manager should work together. The manager, your lawyer is not going to do that. An entertainment lawyer, they're not going to do damage control. They're not going to get on the phone and negotiate with collaborators.
A lawyer can't replace a manager, but a manager can be a good in lieu of until you can afford or get to the point, which I agree with. Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is like, artists don't like the term manage because like they don't want to feel, oh, this person doesn't like manage me. But on the flip side, I think quality managers don't like the managers because it downplays what they do. Like I developed.
No, I am not y'all.
Like on the flip side of that, I don't like the term manager either because it doesn't fully encompass what I do on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm fully developing your business. I am your partner. Like I do so much for Big Ja, and he recognizes that, and we appreciate each other. We appreciate what we both bring to the table. There's no respect lost, and that's why, we work so well together. Now, everything is not easy. We have the tough conversations, but like a manager that's fully tapped in does so much for an artist that calling them just a manager is disrespectful to me.
That's how I feel. It's like I'm a manager. You think I'm just managing this? Bitch, I'm creating whole worlds around you, and we're doing brand deals. I'm covering your back. I'm reading contracts because we can't afford to get general counsel on this joint. I'm throwing this shit into this thing and learning how to redline myself. I just negotiated for triple the amount that you asked for. You know what I'm saying? We're coming up with new business offerings. You calling that a manager? What?
Yeah.
No, that's the funny thing, because I've seen it happen a million times where an artist is like, well, I don't want this manager taking 20% because I just did a show for $300. So what's 20% of $300? $60. So, all right, you don't want to pay that manager $60. The next time you try to negotiate a show, you don't know what you're doing, and you're afraid to burn the bridge, so you accept $150. So you just played yourself.
Don't get paid after the show because you're not going to wait around because you don't want to look desperate.
Right, exactly. So you just lost more than you gained. But in your mind, psychologically, you're like, I have more control because the manager is not the one. And that's stupid. That's incredibly stupid. That's very dumb. It's childish. It's like, oh, I wish my parents would just leave me alone, telling me to clean my room. And next thing you know, you got scurvy or some shit because your room is full of pests and you got bed bugs and cockroaches. And you're like, oh, this is so much better. You got to do some crazy mental gymnastics. And am I comparing creatives to children? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I remember Taz Taylor said, and it was very unpopular. He got a lot of backlash for this. Taz Taylor said, managing is like babysitting. And people are like, what? Are you serious? Like, see, listen to you. You're acting like a baby.
Correct.
It's not everyone. Of course, it's not everyone. Not every artist acts like a baby. And I brought up Taz Taylor, so I'm talking about producers. I'm talking about people like me. There are some days when I know, I have a list of stuff. I write physical lists. When I have a list of stuff, I'm like, why haven't I just done that yet?
No.
I get it. I have to be realistic. I have to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you're being a baby right now. You're acting like a child. Send that email. Make that phone call. I know you don't want to do it, but why don't you want to do that? You got to be an adult. You're an adult. You're not 5.
Yeah, and I don't think Ja minds me kind of putting him on blast, but like he don't even check his email. like Ja don't even. He's the only person that I will ever put up with. Like, if I work with another artist, you have to be so much more on point. But like Ja doesn't even check his email. So I'm over here, making sure he's getting on calls and, checking his email for him at times or checking his DM or posting for him at times. That's on one end of the extreme. On the other end, kind of what Erinn is talking about, I'm finding these strategic partners, coming up with ideas, and then everything in between. So
still writing captions and still making sure people show up on time. Stuff that is not making money explicitly. We still taking care, making sure you're styled right. You are grown. Why are you wearing that t-shirt right now? We trying to get money. What? No, let me run to the store. You know what I'm saying? Like, folks don't know. Folks don't know. You a therapist. They calling you at 3 a.m. because they arguing with their girl. And then that same girl giving me the eyes the next day. I'm like, beloved, I told him he need to support you. Don't look at me. He got his own issues. Shout out to you. But like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. I was just listening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we can move on to the next topic. I just don't like stuff. And I know this is why No Labels Necessary posted this. I just don't like stuff that puts us against each other. It doesn't need to be like this. Number one, you probably don't have a quality manager yet, and that's okay. But don't have it in your mind that a good manager can't add anything to what you're doing, because let's just say now you're progressing to a point where you're having these conversations. In your mind, you think you don't need this person. So now you're trying to lowball them if they want to come on, right? Oh, okay, I'll give you a try, but, I'm only giving you 5%, only giving you 7%, because you don't really understand the true value of that person if that person is a quality manager.
Or let's do a 90-day trial.
Yeah, just to get some free intern work,
For me, I don't do the trial periods because it's like I'm coming in adding value, but I also don't manage artists anymore. That shit is crazy. You gonna try me out and you need help, beloved? Quit playing.
I just don't like it. The same conversations when artists it's some content that gets put out there with artists against producers. Y'all need each other. Y'all need to create together. Most of you, again, 99% of you need a manager should you're fortunate enough to get to a particular place or to even help you get to that place. So let's stop having these arguments and just putting people down. Because that's ultimately, like I said, is what's driving people out of the industry. Now you don't have any managers. Now you're forced to do this yourself. And, failure is probably what, you're going to meet at some point.
Well, let's talk more about failure. So A&Rs and producers are catching shots in this Muni Long conversation. It's a clip from the Joe Budden podcast shared by Jan Sneed. Shout out to all of them.
So just to give people kind of a heads up, so this will be a clip of Muni Long talking about essentially the approach and the quality of music and why she feels like we don't get quality music that we once got.
Do it. The key is quality songs. At the end of the day, you have to make good music. As an artist, I think these days we get caught up in all the hype and the drip and the name and the feature. And the reason why it's not popping is because it's not good.
The song
is not good.
The quality of the music. No, not music. Song.
The song with great production, arranging, because production is not just the note. Yeah. It's like the sonics, the mix, knowing when to take a snare out so it doesn't overlap over the lyrics.
Coaching vocals.
Vocal production as well, yes. So all of that,
and you that is a lost art. In every step.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Yes, and I'm telling them, like, yo, can we get a string intro? I want it to sound like this. I give references, super involved from top to bottom. I think that it's a lost art. I think a lot of new artists don't have the skill. If you notice, and it's not shade, you just don't have it. Nobody's teaching it. Mm-hmm. It's they'll put like a one take vocal. There's no stacks. There's no.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh my Lord.
Yes.
They don't even think about, if you listen to my music, I even put the breaths in there intentionally. So Fire. You can hear it.
Yeah, don't cut it out. It's a human element.
I will go back and add it. Like,
great.
Things like that. Just the experience of listening to my music is higher quality.
That's true.
Than a lot, I'm intentional about it. So that's the reason why I'm not afraid to try other genres. And do things like the sway.
And you can cut it out there. I think it goes for like a whole 3 minutes.
No.
Oh no!
I don't know if I want to try that. I don't like what comes with that. I don't want to be up there twerking. If I could, I probably would, but I can't. So
tall girl shit.
I can't twerk. No, Megan is tall. She could twerk.
I'll cut some of this out.
I can't.
You need to talk about
I'm not a twerker, but I could try country. I could try, rock.
What do you think about the death of the bridge in R&B songs?
I just think that, first of all, again, a lot of the newer producers are not musicians, and so they don't have the chord progressions, loops. Like a lot, people are actually not playing these chords. They're going on splice and putting the chords together.
You gotta go to church, man.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of these niggas need to go to church.
Shout out to Imani also. So she said a lot. She said a whole lot about the whole industry, about artists, about producers, about their respective skill sets. What were your initial reactions? Because I have a lot to say about this.
I think she has a very intricate understanding of the landscape of the music industry. To me, it speaks to a lack of professionalism, if you will, that's so present because there are easy ways to get to things. There are ways to manufacture a sound and an idea and words and to manipulate things without having to actually study and learn. And so for me, as a consumer who cares so much, I really resonate with what she's saying. But for some people, they may be like, yo, I don't care. I'm just trying to vibe, So I'm not saying that what she's saying equals truth for everyone. I'm saying unprofessional because when I consider myself a music exec or a professional at something, I want to be well-versed and well-rounded, not in just the subject matter, but all things around it. So for me as a music executive, I think even that term is limiting. I'm great at business. I'm a business executive. I happen to be iterating to most of y'all in the music industry, but I have companies in other industries. I started in another industry, and I will continuously evolve as a business person. And so I think that's what she's talking about, to be honest, is just really well-rounded, dynamic people who are studied and honed versus people who are jumping into something because it's accessible and they perfect the simplicity of their system. And now they're a producer, and you've talked about it, Payne, how it's beat makers versus producers. I'm with Dame. I don't want to pit people against. I'm not saying that I prefer one or the other. I know a couple of people who just started producing within the last year, sound incredible, don't know music theory. I know people who know music theory and they're way too inside of their head and can't produce a solid track. I also know dudes who went to multiple years of college, went to church, now can make every arrangement. So I'm not saying one is better than the other. I am saying that if this is where you choose to dive in, I really agree with her that calling yourself an A&R, calling yourself a producer, and not being well-versed and well-techniqued and well-equipped to do what you're saying that you do well, I think is a disservice to the overall creative scene because it's begetting laziness and things that I don't think should be added into the music, which is more about politics and does this person like this or can I emulate this thing versus can I be an original and bring something diverse and incredible here. But shout out to Muni Long. I think she's a genius. She's been a writer for years before she was an artist and still writing, still revolutionizing the music industry. And I really appreciate her perspective for sure.
And she can really write. She wrote Timber and then turned around and did a Rihanna song. So she can really, really, really write. And I like what she's saying because it's so harsh. It's a lot of direct shots at a lot of people, but they're not fatal wounds because she's not saying them out of a place of malice. She's just matter of factly saying this is what it is. And I think, especially and I'm glad Joe Budden brought up the death of the bridge because that really, that's something that I think about as a music producer all the time. Bridges are hard. I'm not going to lie. I just feel happy that I produced the whole track for Jaheim and it had a bridge and everything. And I'm like, wow, I actually wrote a bridge. That's amazing. And it, it's not easy, but it comes with a lot of music theory. You have to get into the bridge and then exit out of the bridge gracefully back into some people that's second nature. That's why Imani was talking about church at the end, because a lot of people just have that experience because they've been playing. And you know how the church players, they just, it's amazing what they can do. Just turn on a dime and their music theory is second nature. It's like breathing to them. But a lot of us producers don't have that. And I don't want to talk about, you've heard me criticize the beat maker versus producer conversation. And I still think it's a stupid distinction. What Muni Long did was she didn't make that distinction. She made the producer versus musician distinction. Because you can be a producer without being a musician. Diddy is not a musician. He doesn't play an instrument. He's a producer, though. You know what I mean? There are a lot of producers.
Wild person to reference right now, Payne.
Well, that's why I did it, because that could be seen as insulting, and I don't really feel bad if Diddy gets insulted right now. It's the least of his worries. There is a distinction, because you can make an amazing beat and not be a quote unquote musician in a traditional sense. And that's fine. I don't see Muni Long as criticizing modern day producers, because that's not what hip hop culture revolutionized a lot of things. And it took away the ivory tower sort of Eurocentric traditionalism of music and created something that has now been incorporated, appropriated, however you want to say it, back into the wider landscape of music. We have turntablists playing with symphonies. So everything eats itself and consumes itself in the creative world. So I think all of that is fine. She referenced Splice. I mean, she really knows what's going on, and I really feel like she is a part of every process. The guy who produced Hours and Hours is Dylan Graham. I've made a lot of beats with him. I've been in the studio with him. You know, he's a great beat maker. Don't get me wrong. His beats are amazing. He taught himself piano by watching YouTube videos, learned every chord in a single key, and then just transposes based on the project. So one could look at him and say, "Oh, you're not a real musician." That's neither here nor there. He can write a bridge. You know what I mean? That's Muni Long's breakout solo hit. So there's not any. I don't look at it as shade. When a lot of people say I'm not throwing any shade, they definitely are insulting and disrespecting people. Muni Long was not. She was just speaking on the way things work, and unfortunately or fortunately, that's where we are in music. I think the pendulum is always going to swing, you know, because R&B used to be R&B. It used to have a bridge. It used to have crazy chord changes. It was very connected to gospel. Now it's more connected to rap. And she brought up drip and vibe, and she's kind of showing her age. I thought she was way younger. She's aging amazingly. But, you know, I think the pendulum is going to swing. And we're just not there yet. But I think ultimately, you know, it's not because people get sick of this and that. It's just the nature of music. You know, producers right now, we're making what we're making. But in the future, something's going to change and people are going to want more. And musicality and being more musical is going to start to take precedence over what we value now. Nothing wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just how it is.
I think it's bad. I'm just like, I think the quality of music has definitely gotten worse. You know, there's more people just kind of rushing into the space, obviously rushing out songs. Some of these songs are working for the moment. But there's a reason why, like, a lot of the classic songs still stream very well. Right. I think there's something in the music and the way that it was put together and the care of why it lives. I don't think we're getting as many songs today that will play 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. But there are a lot of songs right now that are streaming very well because they've held up. And I think it's because it has the ingredients that Muni Long is talking about that's missing in a lot of songs today. You know, I think that obviously there's like 100,000 songs being uploaded every single day. You know, very, very, very small fraction of those are probably what you would consider quality songs. I think the streaming decay on the songs that get uploaded, even a lot of the popular songs, is going to be very high versus songs that had the elements that Muni Long is talking about. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I think artists that want to be around for a long time should pay attention to this because, and I've talked about this on this podcast, like the value of your catalog is going to depend on people wanting to stream your music for a very long time. So do you want to be trendy and make a song for the moment? Or do you want to make a song that's impactful, that's going to be played at every single wedding for the next 20, 30 years? You know, every Christmas for the next 20, 30 years. You have to think about this if you want your catalog to hold up and be valuable, even when you decide to quit music. So instead of hearing this and maybe being upset, I would kind of take it in. There was recently, and I don't know if this is a great example of this, but at least visually, it was a good example because this artist may be an amazing artist. And I know she's a huge artist. I'm just not familiar with her skill set and the quality of her music. Her quality of her music is probably good, but it's a young lady, Sabrina Carpenter. She recently did a performance where she was sitting on the couch with Christina Aguilera.
Oh, yo.
And again, Sabrina, I'm not trying to put Sabrina down, but I think just visually, it was maybe a representation of what we're talking about in terms of like the quality of artists that we used to have and the range and the ability of those artists versus what today's stars are. It's clear. And again, I'm not trying to, Sabrina Carpenter, I think, obviously has millions and millions of fans, probably billions of streams at this point. She's doing really well, and she's probably very talented. But in terms of her ability versus a Christina Aguilera, you saw it on display, like right in that performance. Erinn, it looks like you saw that. You feel free to weigh in on what you saw.
Things have changed.
It was like, I watched it at like 3 a.m., right? And again, big respect, because I do think that there's like, it's hard to compare, like, because the same thing happened. I was watching a lot of videos last night. Chandler Moore, who's a gospel singer, was singing with Justin Bieber as well. Justin Bieber can sing. I'm a fan of Justin Bieber.
Talented.
But Chandler Moore grew up in gospel church in Dallas, Texas, and has been singing with Maverick City Music, his own solo projects, boy bands, groups. So they're on stage singing. Chandler goes, then Justin goes, and it's almost like night and day respect. And I'm a huge Justin Bieber. I've seen this man multiple tours. You know what I'm saying? But it's to the point that when Justin would come back in, Chandler would have to sing under him to give him so much more texture. And again, no disrespect, but it's just there's something in the timbre of Chandler Moore's voice. So same thing, Christina Milian. That's hilarious. Christina Aguilera and Sabrina Carpenter. Like, I think Sabrina Carpenter has a cool voice. I'm not saying she's like the best, but it's just like this day and age, that's what they want, kind of like a pure pop voice. Like, you can hold a tune without auto-tune and people are like, oh, you can sing. But Christina Aguilera was on the Moulin Rouge soundtrack singing against the best of the best of the best of the best of the best in her prime, dancing and holding her own. It's different. She sat down on the couch. She did the little ear thing and hit the whistle notes. I was like, yo, I have never in my life seen somebody eaten alive on the same couch. That shit was crazy. I'm like, she had to do sis like that. Like, I felt bad because you could tell she wasn't even trying to show her up. It's her song. That's just what she do. She come to play ball. You know what I'm saying? It was like watching Pop Warner versus the NFL. It's like, damn, you ain't have to do little bro like that. But yeah, they went in. It was great.
You needed to be the absolute best back then because there wasn't an internet to nowadays you can sell everything in addition to your musical talent at the same time. So if you have a personality that's an 8 and your musical talent is a 5, sometimes that's enough. And if your look is a 10, oftentimes that's enough to just convey something, if the song's decent and everything else is cool. But back then you had to start at like elementary school talent shows and you had to beat out all these other kids that didn't have the internet, that aren't singer-songwriters. They're just, their instrument is their voice. And, I think with regards to producers and the death of the bridge and everything, there are classic R&B records without a bridge. There are classic R&B records that are just loops and they're timeless. Return to the Mac is a loop. Timeless. Too Close. Loop. It's timeless. No Diggity. Loop. Timeless.
Sugar Hill Gang's first record is a loop.
Which one?
The Sugar Hill Gang, their first record.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that those songs are classics because they're loops. They're classics for a lot of reasons. I just don't want producers to think, all right, if I can't write a bridge or if I don't have B sections, my songs aren't going to be classics. For the record, when you hear that loop, you know exactly what it is. It's an incredibly memorable loop. And I think it's almost more difficult to create a 4-bar loop that stands the test of time than it is to create, 5 different chord changes in a song, because you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall at that point. I think there are just a lot of factors that make a song timeless. And to speak to Dame's disappointment in today's music, the process of making music is incredibly different. How Muni Long was talking, and I'm the same way. I get frustrated a lot of times when there are artists like Lil Tecca, right? He can just go in. I don't know what his process is. All his music sounds great to me. But there are a lot of artists who use that process of just going in, single lead take, that's it. And I think especially if you're singing and especially if you're doing R&B, you can't be doing that shit. Come on. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Will today's music become classics in 10 years? Hey, we didn't think any of Lil Jon's music was going to be a classic. Maybe you did in Atlanta.
I knew.
But everywhere else, they were like, oh, that's simple ass shit. And you'd get shamed for listening to Cash Money records, or you'd get shamed for listening to Master P. And honestly, some of those songs are classics. They stood the test of time. So who knows, right?
What I don't want people to do is listen to this and have it like slow you up. I think what I would encourage is to get so many reps in where you get to a place where you can make quality music faster. Right. You shouldn't listen to this and be like, oh man, I can't put this out because it's not quality. I can't do this because don't let it stop you. It should encourage you to create more, because you have to work that muscle and get to that point where, you have quality music coming out, because I promise you, your catalog will be valued at a much higher price should you ever decide to sell it. And there are artists today that put that time. I mean, Muni Long obviously being one of them. I think somebody like a Teddy Swims is another one. There's a lot of artists that still put the quality and care into their music. So it's not like saying like nobody does it, but the fact that there are 100,000 songs being created every day, it's just impossible for all those songs to be quality. And then the pressure on artists to create more. Even in the conversation that we just had with Tice, I encourage him to develop a cadence to release music. But that doesn't mean sacrifice quality. You should just be working at getting better every single day. It's just important if you want your music to live for a long time. Is there a song? Do you guys think there's a song? What songs that have come out in the past year, 2 years that you think we're going to be rocking with? Instead of not like us. Instead of not just not like us. Obviously that song is going to be around for a very long time. But what songs do you guys think you're going to be listening to, 20 years from now, 15 years from now?
I think Tim's, anything she's dropping for me is going to be, I'm going like on my deathbed, be listening to Tim's. She's incredible. She has a timeless sound. I honestly think Tommy Richmond, believe it or not, he makes such earworms. I think that whether it's Devil Is a Lie or the other first one that he came out with, I really feel like that's going to be played like in 10, 15 years in movies where people are doing flashbacks to this area of the 2000s. I think he's going to definitely be in there. I think it just really, the way that music is so sectioned out, I think it depends on what world you exist in, because there's some stuff that I feel like I could say and people are like, wait, who is that? And then there's stuff
actually, I think that's better just to give them some examples, because, so that they can hear and see examples of people that you think put the quality and care into their music, even if it's somebody small right now.
Yeah, so I would say Thames, I would say Tommy Richmond, I would say Oxlade out of Nigeria, everything that he's doing. I mean, I'm listening to a ton of stuff coming out of the continent right now. So that's like a lot of Olamide, he's also out of the continent. So I feel like he's going to be crazy. There's another band that I love. They're signed to Def Jam. They're out of Chicago, I think. Their name is Cruiser. So they're kind of like a funk, soul, rock fusion, and their sound is very reminiscent of like 70s meets early 90s meets like acid rock today, and it's fire. So I feel like once you get hit to them, the quality of their sound is so good, but they got signed because they were just dropping record out of the Midwest, and then they collabed with Smino, put them on the map, and then Def Jam got wind, and they're just fire. But it's like a black funk soul rock band and then another band that I think is making timeless music right now is a band called the New Respects out of Nashville. They sound like a classic rock band, but like in 2024. I don't know how to they have both done really well. It doesn't sound old, but it sounds reminiscent, but super fresh. But I would say those are mine. Thames, Tommy Richmond, Cruiser, and The New Respects. Those are 4 that I'm listening to consistently and like, damn, this is, fresh to me. And they all are varying. Tommy Richmond and Thames has got like probably 100 million monthly or 50 million monthly listeners. Tommy Richmond probably has 10 or 15. Cruiser probably has like 500,000 or 600,000 or 700,000. And I think The New Respects may have like 15 or 20,000 monthly listeners. So all different ranges, but I feel like the quality of their sound is outstanding. And I just want to say one thing to the Sabrina Carpenter, Christina Aguilera thing. Definitely no disses, but I think we used to have to develop voices, and now we're developing brands. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, that's the difference. It's like the focus was on the quality of her sound, period, and then everything came from that. Whereas, the newer generation is like, how can we make this viable? So it's like you said, like looks could be this, and then sound could be this, but TikTok could be this, so that works, So shout out to both of them. I'm not shitting on any women. Shout out to both of them. I'm proud of both of them. It's a different era, and it was very evident on that couch. Y'all got to go back and watch that video. It's just different. It's different.
Yeah, I would say it's Killer Mike's album. You can listen to that and tell that time and attention was put into that. So people, if you haven't heard Killer Mike's album, I think
one of my favorite Andre 3000 verses ever, which is wild that he's still coming out with fresh verses that I'm like, oh my God.
You talking about the song with Future?
Yes, it was all of Dungeon Family came together on a track, and it was so exciting for me as an AT Elliott. But it sounded incredible. The production was incredible. It's just genius.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go up and wrap up this episode. I know we've been on for a minute since we recorded the reality check episode as well this morning.
Wait, did Payne have a classic or timeless person that he's listening to right now?
I'm just gonna say Glorilla and get eaten up in the comments, but I think in 10 years, because I'm a DJ, so I'm always playing records, and I'm hyper aware before I play a record of whether or not I think it's too old and that it's already kind of, seen its time. And there are some records that have not seen their time, even though you would think and even if they make a dip, like I could play, oh God, was Cardi B, Bodak Yellow. I can play that and people lose their minds. And that's old in the sense of like today's standards of old, but it's not corny yet. It's not played out. There are some records that are old and corny, and I don't play those. Even though they were hot at one moment, they're not anymore. Young Dro, We Be in the City.
Don't say Dro corny, though.
No. I can play that song
push up.
anytime, and people go crazy. Is it a classic? I mean, to me it is, but in terms of like widespread, you have to be playing a certain type of show for that to work, but it will work among a very fickle rap crowd because they like that. But I think FNF in 10 years will still elicit a great reaction, and people might not feel that now, and you might be a music snob if you feel that way, but it's not about what reaches certain standards of musicality and certain metrics. It's all subjective. It's about what in 10 years is still going to be moving the crowd. And I think that's still going to be moving the crowd. But if you're trying to move the crowd in 10 years, yeah, it's what but that's my perspective as someone who's not, I'm not consuming music in my house and Spotify, drinking tea and watching Netflix. I'm out. I'm in the music streets playing music. And if I don't play the right song, I'm in trouble. So it's not a life or death scenario, but it's a life or death scenario. So I'm very aware of that. And that's just kind of my opinion. But I also concede that I don't know what's going to work. I'll talk about it next week when we share our wins, because I'm pretty sure something crazy just happened and I didn't anticipate it in a good way. So we'll talk about that next time. It's all speculative. But hey, if you want to get some wins in, if you want to get some classic records, guess what? you're not going to get a classic record by sitting on music, not releasing it. Go to twolost.com, use the code MEC, get 3 months of free premium music distribution. Get your music out, get your beats out, get all that stuff out, see what happens. As we were telling Tice, you need data. And in order to get data, you need to release on a consistent cadence. So do that. You have 3 months. Twolost.com, code is MEC. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Peace.